Welcome to Eye Contact. I'm Sorcha Ní Dhubhghaill, and the theme for the 2019 ESCRS John Henahan Prize essay writing competition concerned the balance of work and life for ophthalmologists. Today, I'm talking to Joséphine Behaegel and Dr Sansom, both young ophthalmologists, about this topic. Welcome, Luke. Welcome, Joséphine.
Thank you.
Joséphine, it's clear that this is a topic foremost in the minds of young ophthalmologists and trainees as well. What do you see as the challenges that we have to deal with?
Well, I think it's very well known that the medical training can be very demanding, and it's not just limited to working hours. We as young ophthalmologists and trainees, we have to attend courses, to study and prepare exams, to perform research, and it can be a challenge to combine all these tasks with our personal lives, because very often these tasks are done during our spare time, so during weekends and in the evenings, and this can make our lives busy sometimes. But I must say that this is mostly a positive challenge, a good challenge, because we all have a passion for ophthalmology. We are eager to discover all aspects of the fields. We still have our young enthusiasm, so we are happy to do this. But from time to time, it maybe can feel like it's a little bit too much, because also a lot of young ophthalmologists start thinking about starting a family, or maybe just became parents for the first time. And of course, this is an extra positive challenge, but it for sure makes life even busier too.
Luke, these are very personal issues. Some of our essay writers made a point about the separation between work and life. And family time. Do you think this is even possible?
That's a really good question. I think the essays that enter this year are a fabulous range, and it's really interesting and varied stories. I think making a clear distinction between work and family and personal life is almost the perfect goal. And perfection is often said to the enemy of good. I think we're probably aiming probably more likely to try and make a good life than a perfect life, because it's probably unachievable. So I think, as I alluded to in my essay, life's and work balance is about working with both your colleagues and working with your family to try and make that balance exist and make it work for you, and that's very individual and very personal to each and every one of us, and all of our situations are different. I have an understanding with my family that I will work hard and often and late. So work life is very busy, and they understand that. But we've come to that understanding. My wife and my children know that's how my life is and how it has to be. But as I alluded to, that when I am at home, my time is theirs and theirs alone. So I try not to be on my phone or taking work calls when I'm with my family. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you stay late. There's unexpected things in theatre. There's overrunning clinics. I think that is where the biggest challenge lies, certainly for us as a family, and it's where the frustration and the difficulties creep in. But I think that's the real key, is trying to work through those small problems, be understanding of each other. And it works the other way. Sometimes my wife might be unwell, or as I'm walking out the door running to clinic, one of the children will fall over and scrape their knee, and therefore I end up being at work half an hour late, having to patch them up, or finding that missed PE kit that is hidden under the sofa. So it works both ways, and work have to be equally understanding about the challenges of home life and the difficulties of family life. But I think if there's understanding and cooperation on both sides, then I think it can work, but good rather than perfect.
Joséphine, what about the importance of having a good family and social support network?
I do believe that that family and friends play an important role in the good work-life balance, because, as you mentioned, they are a support network. So, firstly, I believe they allow an access to the world outside of the working place. So, I think it's important to once in a while to grab a coffee with a friend, or to phone a friend while you're driving back home. It's good to distract your ideas or, for example, when you're having a bad day at work, or if things don't go as expected, they can cheer you up, and that's positive. But the problem is that often it's difficult to meet friends while performing a full-time job. So actually for me, my biggest support is my partner. He's also a doctor, so this can also make it difficult sometimes because he also has his own obligation, he makes long days, but on the other hand, he understands my obligations as well. He understands why I'm working in the weekends, why I'm answering emails during holidays. And furthermore, he is the first person to rehearse my presentations or to proofread my articles, so he's almost becoming an expert in my research field.
Luke, it seems that the challenges are even greater for our female colleagues, facing not only the demands of an intensive work schedule, but also the requirements of raising a family and being there. What are your opinions on this?
That's a really interesting question, one I can't necessarily answer from experience. But I absolutely agree. I look at the challenges and the difficulties that I face, but then look at my female colleagues around me and think that their life must be 10 times as hard, and actually I should maybe just suck it up a little bit and appreciate the difficulties that others have as well. But I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people start their families during their training years. Training years are already difficult, as we've already alluded to, with exams, trying to get your surgical numbers and essays, exams, and whatever else. So then trying to put a family in the middle of that is really difficult. And I was privileged in the fact that I didn't have to take a break from my training. I had a few weeks off when my children were born, and I'd probably like more, but it didn't interrupt my training, it didn't interrupt the flow of where I was progressing. But obviously for my female colleagues, they have to take time off towards the end of pregnancy for the birth, and then normally for looking after children for 6 months or a year thereafter. And I think that poses a great number of challenges. The difficulties of going back to work, the stresses and sometimes guilt of leaving children at home once you've been a parent and then trying to go back to work. Do you go back part-time? Can you still operate? Can you still look at an eye? I think there's lots of challenges around that. And then equally, you mentioned about caring for family and elderly relatives. And this often falls on sort of female partners within the relationship. So that creates a whole nother difficulty. So it's all those practical aspects around it as well, dropping the children off before you go to work, so you may miss a morning ward round, or seeing the first few patients of clinic, having to leave early, emergencies, sickness, all of these things. So the challenges are, I think, much greater for my female colleagues, and it's up to myself, and both as an institution, as other trainees and consultants, to make allowances and understanding for that. And I think, again, if that's done, then solutions can be found for all of these problems, but I think it's still very difficult.
So, Joséphine, do you think that there are any institutional changes that might reduce the stresses associated with work-life conditions?
I think this is a very hard question. I do believe that the quality of the training environment is important, because I think that hard work, it makes a part of the job. At the end, we all have to become skilled physicians, so it's important to have an intense training. But our mental health is also important. But I do believe that we can feel mentally stronger if we feel that our skills are improving and that we're making progression. So I do believe the quality of the training has an important role. Also, the head of department plays an important role. He should be flexible towards the residents. He should provide some protected research time. He should allow residents to go on conference. I think these small things have a huge impact. And then maybe lastly, I also believe that positive reinforcements from the supervisors towards the trainees may help, because at the end, hard work is much more satisfying when getting appraisal for it.
Thank you so much, Joséphine and Luke, for joining me for this conversation. And I want to thank you for joining us. And for more information, please visit us at eurotimes.org.